So, get my breath. Looks like we've got a full table today. This is nice. A lot of people are here. I'm Larry Powell. I'm chairman of the Nuclear Materials Committee. The meeting is being recorded live, so everyone keep the idle chatter down. Everyone, please state your name and your affiliation before speaking. Speaking to the microphone. There'll be a public comment period. Anybody making a public comment needs to come up to the microphone to speak. The public should sign in, and the cab members should sign in as well to note your attendance. And I guess this is a point before we go to our recommendations. We've got one open recommendation and no pending recommendations. I have a question, James.
Yes, sir.
And you guys. We are at a point in time where we've got a new manager and we've got a new Department of Energy secretary. And so the whole core of the DOE, I think, has changed since this 350 recommendation has gone before the board, before the DOE. I'm sorry. I'm wondering if when we submit a recommendation and we get an answer back, it's usually signed by the manager of the plant. I'm wondering who is that person, the person who actually writes that letter and sends it back to us. And what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is
and then it goes through an extensive concurrence process amongst not just their division directors and AMs, but the external affairs folks look at it, and the DDFOs look at it. The site manager looks at it before appending their signature to it. So if either of our folks would like to weigh in on it and fill any blanks, but I would say that while it's possible, more than likely with everybody else who's already weighed in, you're more likely to get the same response.
That's kind of what I'm getting to. I don't want to be so tenacious as to say that we want to keep this recommendation open until we can get an answer that I like better than the answer we got last time. But I'm just wondering would it make any sense to anybody to try to send this recommendation through again? And this is the recommendation opposing the receipt of the German spent nuclear fuel. Anybody have any thoughts on that? Or should we just close this recommendation?
Narendra Malik, I think we should leave it like as it is, so that we gave our opinion, it was voted upon, and majority of the board members, they decided it should go ahead as it was written. So therefore, I'll say that
for that, we could talk to DOE. You just send me an email and say, hey, I'm not sure about paragraph 3. We could get clarification if clarification is the real issue, but I don't think that it's clarification. You're wanting a different response.
More or less.
So I don't know where you would see any real benefit in leaving it open, because the response isn't going to change just from asking for clarification on the points.
Okay. That being said, it would be my inclination just to leave it open for one more meeting, unless somebody has.
Narendra Malik, I think I agree with you, and I agree with James. We should ask them further question and try to get some more clarification and leave it open until we have final satisfaction with us.
Okay, thank you. Dawn?
Dawn Gillis, Cab. I think leaving it open is just a moot point at this point. I don't think we're going to get any different answer. And just by asking the same question again, we're not going to get a different answer. And it's just wasting everybody's time. I would just say, just because some don't like the answer doesn't mean it's not we're going to get a different answer. I say close it.
Okay. Anybody else got an opinion on this? Yes.
What would be the purpose of leaving it open with DOE? This is a pretty well debated.
And I guess the other thing is, Narendra, we can always open this back up again. We can write a new recommendation. So, would it be okay with you if we close this?
Narendra Malik, I'll be very happy if it's closed because we know the answer.
Thank you. James, is this the point in time where we decide to close this, or?
Yes, you can. What you'll do is you'll vote amongst the group to close it or recommend it for closure to the full board. You'll discuss this again at the full board meeting and give everyone else a chance to talk about it, and you'll close it formally there in May.
Okay, thank you. I don't think that, does anyone have any new business to talk about? I don't think that we have anything on the table, or anyone?
James, should I bring up what I was?
If you want to talk to the draft that you sent, I think that would be okay. Unfortunately, it came in a little bit late. I didn't have a chance to circulate it, and we were
this
here.
afternoon is too late.
I left. I was out of the office by 2. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. We were here, so didn't have a chance to print it. We didn't have a chance to circulate it amongst DOE. So if we can wait, but if you don't mind, you can update everybody on what it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
And I did send it to you, Larry. I've got to pull it up myself.
Yeah, I've got it.
This is something I sent very late. This is something I've been talking about, trying to get a recommendation about for quite a while, having to do with the SRS INL exchange for the aluminum fuel and the non-aluminum fuel. And I wrote up a real brief thing. In fact, let me see if I can find it. So I can go ahead and read it so people can just be thinking about it. Yeah, these guys, nobody else has seen it yet. It's only you and me and James that have seen it so far. Okay. How come I can't see it? What's going on? Here we go. Okay. Oh, that's the wrong one. I have a couple for waste management too.
Dawn, you want?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can probably read it off yours better anyway. Right, spent nuclear fuel. Aluminum-based and non-aluminum-based. SRS has the currently operating capability to process the aluminum-based SNF. The reusable uranium is recycled back into power production, off-site disposition, and the unusable portions, fission and activation products, including any small amounts of plutonium in the fuel, are processed through the high-level waste operations and end up in glass logs ready for permanent disposal when it becomes available. Regardless, what'd I do? I hit the button. Which one do I want? Stop hitting buttons. I tell my mom that all the time. Where were we? Regardless, glass logs are far superior long-term storage form compared to SNF stored in water. SRS does not currently have a means to process the non-aluminum-based fuels. Dry storage is not a means to process or disposition SNF off-site. It is simply another means of storage. However, INL has currently operating means to dry store non-aluminum-based SNF, but not the capability to dry store or process their aluminum-based SNF. Now, I wasn't 100% sure. Idaho is not dry storing aluminum fuel. Is that right? Back in 1995, DOE's Record of Decision, DOE 1995B, for the SNF Management Programmatic EIS included consolidating SNF regionally by type. The ROD indicated that SRS would store all aluminum-based fuel and INL would store all non-aluminum-based fuel. Under this ROD, SRS would ship its non-aluminum-based fuel to INL, and INL would ship its aluminum-based fuel to SRS. After several modifications to this rod, none of which deleted the option of the exchange, a new rod in 2000, DOE 2000B, reaffirmed the exchange, but it was subsequently put on hold in parentheses, end quotes. In 2006, DOE approved the mission needs statement, in parentheses, the first step in defining a project through project management implementation for processing all the SRS AL-based, aluminum-based fuel through H Canyon. This project included implementing the SRS INL exchange, and if implemented, would have had the L basin totally empty and ready for decommission by 2019. That's next year, guys, not happening. This project was never implemented for political reasons when the Blue Ribbon Commission was formed. H Canyon is now successfully processing aluminum-based SNF from L Basin. This begins the de-inventory of L Basin. It's time once again to implement the SRS INL exchange so that SRS can de-inventory the non-aluminum SNF exchange. That's real bare bones. It's just what I kind of took out of the report from last meeting, and the recommendation obviously can be quite a bit more elaborate, but that's the bottom line of it. So that's the concept that I am looking at for that.
Thank you, Dawn. Any other new business? Do we have, is Maxine here?
Nope, but I'm here to speak.
Okay, you're going to give us
Vaccine on air entry.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Tony Polk, Department of Energy. I'm the Nuclear Materials Programs Division Director. And I'm going to give you some bit of an update on the activities in nuclear materials. We're in sustained operations in all the facilities, although we are currently in an outage, in H area steam outage. Outages are a part of normal operations for us. Some work there to be done, maintenance items and other to be taken care of while we're in the steam outage. As we come out of that steam outage, we expect to get back into processing both the HIFER fuel and the MTR fuel. We've been processing HIFER fuel and currently have completed 2 batches of HIFER, and we've been preparing the 6-1 dissolver. We can have both of the dissolvers operating simultaneously for HIFER and MTR fuel. We continue with target residue material processing for the liquid materials from Canada. Those activities are going on ahead of schedule. So we've received more than we had planned, and that is primarily due to good work both on the part of Canada in preparing and the work that we have done to prepare for being able to receive those materials. We continue to look for improvement there so that we can be able to move that program back as far as possible. In K area, we've completed all 6 destructive examinations for FY18, and downblending of plutonium was initiated in March. In L area, we continue to support fuel receipts from foreign and domestic research reactors and the transfers of that spent nuclear fuel to H area for processing. And in F area, 235F, we continue to prepare there for additional work in those cells as we continue characterizing the last of the cells for the materials that are there and prepare the cells for entry at some point to begin the deactivation activities and removal of materials from 235F. That constitutes the majority of the items that are ongoing in nuclear materials. So if you've got any questions, I will be glad to answer.
Narendra Malik, my question is twofold. How many shipments did you receive from Canada, and who pays for that?
So the shipments from K area, I don't know how many shipments. I have to find that from Canada. Okay, so I can tell you that we have received, I'll have to do it this way, nearly 40 shipments, okay? There are more than 100 shipments that are planned. And as soon as we are out of the outage, which was planned for in our planning with Canada, we will begin receipt again of those materials.
And who pays for the treatment?
So the Canadians are paying for that. They paid for the modifications to the facility that are in place that we use for receipt and transferring that material into the canyon, and they pay for the shipments.
Thank you.
Don?
Dawn Gillis-Cab, how many hypercores are in a batch?
So in this case, there have been 2 batches of 9 cores.
Oh, okay. And that's an inner and an outer?
Excuse me, so that's 9 cores total.
Okay.
So 4, I believe, in one and 5 in the other.
And it's an inner and an outer total, or is it just,
It
when you
is-
talk
it
a
is-
core?
It's total core.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you.
It's my understanding.
Anyone else have questions?
Right.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Larry.
You sure, Gil?
Okay, we've got committee discussion. Management disposal. So has anybody got any thoughts on this? Tom?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the schedule for us was we would hear Maxine at the full board in May will present the site's position relative to this committee's report. Is that correct?
I don't know.
That is 100% correct, yes. So feel free to discuss this one today, but Maxine will be giving you DOE's position on spent nuclear fuel and what they're working on, what their projects are at the May full board meeting.
Okay.
So if you remember, I told you about that because I wanted to make sure that, you know, if you wanted to make a recommendation based off of this presentation, that was certainly something you could pursue, but I wanted you to think about waiting if you had anything so that you could get both ends of that story and then come in June at the committee meeting fresh and really start working on it. I think that would probably be would have been the best way to go about things.
Tom French, Scab, just so everybody knows, I reconnected with a friend of mine that's on that board, and I've talked to him, and he said,
Because, I mean, our communication is always supposed to have gone through.
I would prefer if you did it through us and we could funnel that question into to Brett Leslie. They're the person that they identified that they want questions going through.
okay.
So it also helps if we know about the questions, then we can help stay on top of things and make sure you get an answer.
Okay.
All right, so go ahead, Dan.
Dan Kaminsky, CAB. So just looking back at my notes during the presentation, I had asked what was the board's #1 concern at SRS through this whole report and findings, and he had responded, getting ready for mission, R&D, moisture removal, CAB recommendation is a possibility here. We support NWTRB and want SRS to have all ducks in a row. That's kind of my thoughts coming out of that. So from a budgetary standpoint, you know, I look back at this a little bit. I didn't do a deep dive, but I didn't see anything that we're missing today. So I do believe, from my perspective, everything I see, DOE does have their ducks in a row, and they are getting ready for the future missions as they come up. So I just wanted to make sure that was reiterated in committee so that if there was an additional conversation on this presentation, we can keep moving on it, keep it on our thoughts, and then obviously Maxine's presentation as to her take on it will be quite interesting.
Anyone else? Don?
Dawn Gillis-Cab. Now I'm looking back on what they said, the key observations on SRS, and I think that the recommendation I was just talking about, it says at SRS, it's on slide number 10.
Yeah.
It says SRS plans to, one of them is indefinitely, that this has been in discussion again. And I'm not sure how that fits in with what this presentation says.
trying to address that. Can I see Dawn?
Yep.
go through?
This is what they gave last time, and that's the bullet that's in there.
Yeah, Dawn, it was part of the 4 constraints that they saw that holds it all
Why we
back.
can't do things.
Right.
Department of Energy again. So you have to excuse me because I was not present at the last meeting when I was on travel, and so missed this. And the review board here and you know their charter I am not completely familiar with. But Dawn, you are correct in the discussion about there being recent activity again based on the 45-day report and discussion about the value of being able to get back to this exchange for the department. And so, to my knowledge, okay, that discussion was in the 45-day report was accepted as part of ongoing activities by EM to look at this moving into the future. It was mentioned earlier that politics have been in the way of this in the past, and that continues to be the case from our perspective relative to the folks at Idaho being able to meet some of their commitments before the door and the open discussion looking forward for the department's missions continue. We'll try to keep you updated on anything that may happen relative to changes associated with it.
Okay, I just didn't like that indefinitely, and I don't want
notes in this. I must have been asleep when they had the presentation. I'm sorry. So, so some of the spent fuel at SRS will go directly to repository. It won't be reprocessed. I mean, is that?
some of the non-aluminum fuel from Idaho. That's what they're.
Oh, that's what they're. Okay. So I see here under the management section that it's going to be stored decades longer than expected, and that's, I guess, because of the delay in citing a permanent repository.
Which page are you on?
I'm on.
Multi-purpose.
Come up there, Mike.
A multi-purpose canister can be dual use or even more. Dual use would be suitable for storage. It's totally sealed. You would, and then the dual would come for transportation. You'd put an overpack on it for impact limiters and extra containment with the overpack also. And then full, that same canister can be disposed in a repository. So a multi-purpose canister can serve up to 3 functions, starting with storage, sealed storage.
Now, do we already have these in use, or is this just something we're working toward developing?
Working towards developing for the DOE fuel. There is a design, a DOE standard canister design, but it's not been implemented to date to put DOE fuel.
Or anything? Or they just, you put it in there and close it up and hope everything's okay?
No, it would be considered a confinement boundary, and can be, of course, inspected on the outside. You'd probably have a overpack of a biological shield overpacking it, but it would be inspectable. Yes, on the outside, looking for cracking, and so it would have a ability to have an aging management of it with an inspection of it. Yes.
And if it did become defective, you would repackage it?
You would most likely, and this is just my guess, but
Right.
there's no policy or no, path. But yes, you can oversleeve it and put it in a package. Oversleeve it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Let everybody know your affiliation.
I'm Bob Sindler. I'm affiliated with the Savannah River National Laboratory.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So now we have, if there are no other questions on the management and disposal of the DOE spent nuclear fuel, we'll move on to the H Canyon and aluminum clad HEU. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I was late. For new members or members that don't realize, is it the 30th we're having the tour?
Yes.
Yes.
So I
April
mean,
30th.
we'll actually, and I believe on the tour is the L basin, isn't it?
Yes.
So I mean, you'll actually be able to see these containers. I mean, I've been on a number of tours. L basin's one of the places I like to go to. I think it's neat. So I encourage everybody, if you haven't already signed up, or is it too late? I don't know. To let them know.
Okay, do we have discussion on?
This is Mike Dunsmuir. I just want to clarify one point. We don't have MCOs or dry storage canisters in L area.
My bad.
So I just wanted to make it so you don't come out there wanting to go see some shiny new system that we don't have yet.
Thank you.
Still cool.
Okay, H Canyon and an aluminum clad HEU. This is our opportunity to discuss this as a committee. Do we have any discussion on this? So James, this is pertaining to an upcoming presentation, is that?
No, this also was one Maxine gave this at the full board meeting, and you could discuss this today.
How much advance?
So if you have any,
We lose H Canyon, we become a third world country in processing. I mean, I think that's what she said. I'm paraphrasing. I don't want to misquote her. We're the only place in the United States that has this capability. And Doug and I are going to an all chairs meeting in a few weeks. And this is the type of, they ask us when we go to these meetings, what's going on at Savannah River that we need to know about. And this is something I think that we need to share. Whether, Idaho has an issue with it, or Hanford has an issue, or Paducah, or, I'm just pulling stuff out of my head here, other sites around the complex. But, we need, we're not gonna have time to write a recommendation, but we need to, for processing fuel. And if we lose this, I hate to even talk like that, but if we lose H Canyon, then how are we going to process the fuel that's already here? Forget the fuel that's going to be shipped here. And so, we've had 3 years, I think, of some of the materials committee to, and who that person is, like, to can really dig into this recommendation to DRS. So here's.
We have recommendation 348.
Do it again.
Yeah.
Gil, I think H Canyon, I don't think it's disposable. I think we have to have it. And the thing that fascinates me about it was built, and the precision it was built with, and how far thinking built it, and it's still operating. I think that a good recommendation would be to build a new H Canyon, because it took probably 3 or 4 years to build the last one. It'll probably take 30 years to build the next one.
It'll take 10 years just to make the decision.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that H Canyon is into something.
Kaminsky Cap. Some of the interesting factoids that came out in that presentation, that DOE basically needs $30 million above the current continuing resolution to really make some serious progress to all points of that recommendation. And I think if we do want to go back and enhance that some, let's confirm some of these figures and put the opportunity in front and help it get a little more voice to it. They know we support H Canyon now. Now if we put some dollars and cents, not anymore. So that's kind of my point on that. I think we have some opportunity to further broadcast it, like you said, Gil, and get behind it and throw some additional numbers and weight at it.
Now, are we going to need this kind of capability for 30 plus years out? That's another big key. So, because there is a limited quantity of aluminum-based fuel in the U.S. I mean, there's still high for aluminum-clad fuel that's used in the U.S. research.
I'm not sure what the other suppliers.
Because there is some aluminum fuels that are still being used.
Dan again. Yeah, the other fact that had come out, I think it was in the other report, the other presentation, that they just don't have H Canyon. And to have squandered the resource probably in our current bureaucracy, we would never achieve another H Canyon. We would never be able to build another one under today's atmosphere and climate in Washington. So to squander it and watch it go to waste and crumble by the wayside, just be lack of use, is one of the worst things you can do for equipment and facilities. So leaving it sit idle is just, I can't even imagine what this place would cost to replicate that in today's dollars. Trillions, I'm suspecting.
Yeah, that's hard to say, but it's also, I mean, that was one of the things. There's always the safe shutdown mode, which is the crumbling thing, trying to keep it minimally safe. Then there's the safe, what is it called? Safe minimum operations, crumbling from happening, but you don't process anything through it. So, and that still costs. That costs like this much of it, and the processing costs but that much on top of it.
Decided to decommission F Canyon. I have no idea what is the status of that building.
It's prohibitive to try and restore those facilities back to operation.
That's exactly what we don't want to happen with H Canyon.
I think that concrete will this as a fact, but I don't know. It continues to harden for about 100 years, and then after 100 years, maybe a little much. So at some point, H Canyon will out of service or whatever. So, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Dave Isaac Cab. I'm a new guy.
Dave, can I get you to talk it?
2013, 1,000 MTR, 200 heifers. He just said, Tony just said, there's your stumbling block in the. Is there a plan to update the A-Rod?
So, from a planning standpoint, okay, continues to maintain and operate H Canyon with the view that that canyon is going to be necessary well out into the future. Okay, you are right that the bundles and 200 heifer more material in storage than that, and if you were to add the materials that are in Idaho, that increases again even more. So other things are probably limiting factors. You've discussed, the fact that this has been a facility that it is robust, it is flexible, and with the right degree of maintenance and upkeep on infrastructure well into the future. But as the department looks into the future, maintenance is necessary to keep it running.
Susan?
Susan Corbett, Cab. Well, as usual, I will probably take an opposing position on this. I understand we have things we have to clean up, but you've got to remember that canyon produces a lot of waste, too. It adds liquid waste back into the tanks that we're so desperately trying to empty. It separates out plutonium, which we keep assuming is going to go somewhere, and which may or may not ever go anywhere. And reprocessing is around the world has created stockpiles of weapons usable plutonium, and so it's a very dirty process. It has releases, tritium and other things. There's a lot of heavy metals in the process. It's just not all the perfect thing that you're hearing about. So if we ever have this serious discussion, I will bring my opinion to the table, but I can tell you that I would oppose any new attempts to reprocess. And I know we have things here we have to clean up. My goal would be to get these things cleaned up and to not go out and seek new missions out in the world. This is to clean up our own backyard and be done with it and move on to other things. I don't want to see reprocessing in the future of the world. I don't want to see creation a plutonium-based energy system in the future of the world. That's just my opinion, and I hope someday we can clean up this mess here. We've got a big mess to clean up, and I hate to see us adding to the burden of the legacy waste that we already have to deal with. So that's my opinion.
All of our aluminum fuel and all of the Idaho fuel, if I remember right, that would add about 300 glass logs to the, what, 4,000 or 5,000?
It's a small amount. I don't
Yeah.
remember the exact number, but it's.
Yeah, I remember 300 it would add to the total amount of about 4,000, so it'd be a very small quantity. And the very, very small quantity of plutonium, it's not even close to weapons usable. It would be added in with all the other fission products, all the other activation products, and would just go out to the waste tanks. There'd be no separation of the plutonium separate for this spent fuel processing.
Thank you, Dawn. Any further comments? Okay, that concludes our discussion. H Canyon Aluminum Clad HEU. We can move on to public comments.
Before you do that, do you want to take a vote on whether or not you want to close 350? Because I think
350.
So motion.
Second? Okay, we have, so all in favor of closing recommendation 350, raise your right hand. All opposed? All abstain? Okay. Clickers.
yeah, you had to do it on manually. I'm so sorry. We have it. We could pull it out if you want to see it.
Yeah, it was easy enough.
So now do you want to move to public comment?
Yes. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
I can sign up, but I'll say something to you. Listen.
Okay, Joel.
We don't know yet, Joe.
Well, I'm glad that there's interest in running H Canyon because everything that was said was true. It's a unique thing. It's something it's one in the world as far as we know. It can do a lot of good things. And I think you ought to follow up on some of the things Tony was saying. In other words, he's saying that the DOE is giving thoughts of what we have. Approach it from two issues. One, we got what we got today. We got these existing wastes in these different places, and we know H Canyon is the only place to process them. So that's one situation. You want to support that. You want to do what has to be done to do that. Then take one step into the future. Well, what else could be coming to H Canyon? And is H Canyon capable of doing that today, or does it need modifications? Is there enough confidence that it can be fixed to keep it running for another X years type of thing? But maybe you ought to be thinking about asking DOE to come talk to you a little bit about what Tony was saying in a little more depth. H Canyon exists. It has certain jobs that are laid out we know about. H Canyon's got a finite life. It's not going to last forever. We know that. But it can be maintained. And is it able to be maintained to do what we think it might do in the future? I don't think you'll ever get a duplicate of H Canyon. I mean, he says trillions of dollars, time, and all the rest of that stuff. And you probably can't justify H Canyon as it is today based upon what we know today. But I think there should be something that can address what H Canyon is doing at some level, or at least get to the point where, is that correct or is that incorrect? But I think you're on the right track. I encourage you to keep going and realizing that the uniqueness of it and the need for it today, and ask yourself, is there enough potential future years that we can justify spending a lot of bucks to do something, and what is that something? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, if that's the extent of the public comments, does anyone else have anything to say before we adjourn? Okay, I guess we can adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.